Excited to tell you about the exciting things happening in Baton Rouge. The political season is ramping up, and for some reason, Gordy Rush is here. I do not know why. Roll it, Kyle. Doesn't the national political scene almost remind you of the old pro wrestling days from back in the day? Even though they're going to go through the exercise, you pretty much know Ric Flair's going to win. Well, Ric Flair's not running for president, but we do have characters all the same. John Couvillon is here with us, the man behind JMC Analytics. And let's start by talking about the national political scene. As we record this show, the results in Iowa have not been completed, but let's face it,
right,
we pretty much can predict that Donald Trump is going to be the lead.
Correct. The question really is the extent to which he wins. In other words, are we talking 10 points, 20 points, and so forth? And the dirty truth is, or should I say the unpleasant truth, which I tend to give from time to time, really what we're talking about right now is the donor primary, which is depending on the strength of Nikki Haley's showing in New Hampshire, the question is, do donors conclude that she has that mythical path to the nomination? Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, she did win the tiny hamlet of Dixville Notch last night by a 7-0 margin, yeah, but we're talking about the whole state of New Hampshire, and it will be interesting to see, like I said, if donor expectations are such that she could be considered a credible candidate to go to Nevada, South Carolina, Super Tuesday, and of course us on March 23rd.
Well, all these conservative candidates are dropping like relatives at a Southern barbecue during the summer. So let's talk a little bit about why that has been the case.
So I guess
By the way, if you're from the South, you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think the first thing you have to talk about is Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
Talk about a campaign that had such high expectations,
yeah,
and seriously underperformed.
Yeah.
Or as Ann Richards once said, he was born on third base and thought he hit a triple.
No doubt.
But the thing that I think was fundamentally the biggest mistake he made was the way he delayed his presidential entry by 6 months. He almost thought it was like a Beyonce or a Taylor Swift album where you could tease people for 6 months, but this is politics. This is not entertainment where people are willing to wait those 6 months to get concert tickets or a new album. So that to me was fundamental mistake number one he made. And after that, he just came across as inauthentic.
Huh.
I mean, like the bit about his high heels and so forth, or excuse me, platform shoes.
Listen. First of all, you might be the only person connected to politics who would make a Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Ron DeSantis reference, put them together.
Politics is entertainment,
We
though.
were talking about this before we started the show. He won re-election in Florida by nearly 2/3
yes,
of the electorate supporting him. That is a state that is diverse racially, gender-wise, age-wise, economically. All of those things are going on there. And the biggest thing when I watch him as a candidate is there was no authenticity. There was race baiting, there was pandering. He acted like, I didn't see anything that says leader. I just saw character,
right,
or caricature of a politician. Same goes for Nikki Haley, someone who was accomplished in South Carolina, well-liked by many people, a former member of the Trump administration. For some reason, unsolicited, she tells Brian Kilmeade America's never been a racist nation. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And you don't even have to say it.
Right.
You could acknowledge the past and also acknowledge the many, many gains we've made. And I'm looking at them going, that's why y'all can't beat Trump. Because he's himself. Whether you like him or hate him, he's himself. And they don't even know who they are.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's a disturbing tendency you have where I think that you have a lot of candidates who are pre-programmed and they're not smart enough or brave enough to basically be their own person.
Yes.
Because, I mean, a perfect example is Ron DeSantis. You kind of get the feeling the guy is not really a likable person. He's someone who, he's an accomplishments type of person, but not a likable person. To me, he could have used that as an asset. I mean, make some little humorous joke about, look, I got no personality and nobody likes me, but I know how to get stuff done. I think people would have given him the benefit of the doubt, as opposed to the fake smile or his arguing with children and or women at campaign appearances. The optics of that are terrible.
Horrible. And here you have a place where I truly believe the vast majority of Americans look at this and it's going to be Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And I don't think there is great confidence in either candidate.
Correct.
You have a candidate who is, God bless him, struggling to be coherent at press conferences. And then you've got this other, I don't even know what you call it. And you're thinking 320 million people in the country, and this is what we have?
It almost reminds me of that scene at the end of, I think it was Rocky II, where both contenders were knocked down and basically the person who climbed up the first won. That to me is kind of the theme of the 2024 presidential election.
Well, this conversation depresses me, and there's only coffee in this cup. So let's move and give me another 30 on this, Kyle. Let's talk about here locally, Jeff Landry and the first couple of weeks of him being the person at the wheel.
So as if I haven't used up all my pop references yet.
You got another one?
I do.
Okay.
This one is the old Meatloaf song, 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad.
All right.
So more specifically what I'm talking about, the 3 items that were near and dear to Governor Landry's heart. Number 1, Supreme Court redistricting. Number 2, congressional redistricting. And number 3, an item that came out of nowhere. And in fact, we didn't see the bill text until after the session convened, the change to closed primaries. So Governor Landry got his wish on the congressional map. The Supreme Court map got shelved. That's the one that got away.
Yeah.
And the primary bill, even though it was significantly trimmed back, you could still make the argument that since the core is there, I would count that as a win.
Yeah, and look, we've got less than a minute here. He's got the power. He's going to be able to do what he wants to do. And contrary to the way people look at politics, I generally root for the success of anyone in an executive branch, especially if it's in a state or a city I live in. Because if they suck at their job, it generally means that we're not going to have a good time. So I want him to be successful. In 20 seconds, what's the biggest thing he's got to do in his first year?
I think understand the relationship between the governor and the legislature. More specifically, working with the legislature to get things done and not taking the stick approach, but using more carrot.
JMC Analytics, win with JMC. He'll be back in a few weeks to talk more about what's happening across the state. Let's talk about Baton Rouge next.